Hey y'all, Rick Sky here. Welcome back to another Timepieces for Tomorrow video. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so and ring that bell icon when you do, and that'll notify you whenever I post another video. I've got a lot of videos in this playlist. You can check them out. Again, subscribe, check them out, and ask questions, because if you have great questions, I'll try to respond within an upcoming video. One of the things that I'll always adhere to within this Timepieces for Tomorrow video series is sincerity. You know, I'm not here to talk something up. If I like something, I'll tell you my opinions. If I dislike something, I will tell you my opinions. I'm not brand loyal at all. Everything I say is my own honest opinion. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started here. This video, I'm going to talk about several popular dive watches. You know, watches that you can swim with, watches you could wear with a suit, watches that are iconic. This right here is the arguably the most iconic and timeless wristwatch in the world. This is the Rolex Submariner. Now, what makes the Rolex Submariner great? Now, this is a more current reference. This is not the most current reference. And by the way, reference just means model. When you're talking about wristwatches, you often say reference whatever. So this is reference 114060. So this has a ceramic bezel, 40 millimeter case. Speaking of case size, that's something that a lot of people like. For most, at the time of filming this video, 2021, 40 millimeters is probably the optimal wristwatch size for most men. So, you know, if you want something that's not too big, but you want something that's not too small, unless you've got an enormous wrist, 40 millimeters is probably going to be great. And even if you have a larger wrist, 40 millimeters is still going to be, you know, a good looking piece. So without, you know, my honest opinion today, 2021, 39 millimeters to about 42 millimeters on the high end is probably going to be the optimal wristwatch size for most men. Now keep in mind, I don't have any rectangular watches. All of mine are circular. So if you like rectangular watches, you know, that size recommendation could be different. Again, I don't have any rectangular watches, so I really can't talk about that style. But yeah, 40 millimeters, so the 114060 Submariner, or older reference Submariners, they're all great. Now keep in mind, with some of the older reference Submariners, you're getting aluminum bezel inserts. You know, this has ceramic. So the aluminum bezel inserts will probably scratch and fade. Some people like that because of the patina that it develops, but this ceramic will probably not crack and will probably not fade. So it's probably going to look as good, you know, 50 years from now as it did when I got it. The bezel action on the Submariner, 120 click bezel, meaning that if you start at the 12 o'clock position and then go back to the 12 o'clock position, it's 120 clicks. Arguably the smoothest and best sounding bezel action on the market. And I know that sounds silly. It's like, well, who cares if it has 120 versus 60 clicks? Collectors care, you know, and that's an important characteristic. That's something that sets the Submariner aside from a lot of the other popular dive watches that we're going to talk about within this video. So also, you know, this obviously has sapphire crystal, probably won't scratch, probably won't shatter unless you hit it really hard on something. It's got crown guards that may better protect the crown. You know, if you run into a desk with your wrist, or you're jumping off side of a boat, and you know, instead of hitting the crown, it may hit the crown guard, and it may save your crown and may prevent your Submariner from leaking. The bracelet on this, on the older reference Submariners, they were kind of jingly-jangly and they felt cheap. This Submariner and the current reference Submariner that's newer than this one, the current one I think is, I don't know the reference number off the top of my head, but it's a 41 millimeter case instead of a 40 millimeter. So I still like this 114060 the best. Some Submariners have a date. They're called the Submariner date. This is just called the Submariner because it doesn't have a date. A lot of collectors prefer the no-date version, the non-date Submariner, over a Submariner that has a date because the dial has better symmetry. I like that. You know, a lot of people say, well hey, you just got the no-date because you didn't want to pay extra for the date. That's what a lot of non-watch collectors would say, which is a fair statement. If you don't, you know, if you don't really know what you're talking about, that would be a fair statement, a fair assumption. The bezel on this has platinum on it, and then the indices, or the, you know, all the markers on the dial, they're white gold, and the hands are white gold. So, you know, really professional looking look. And obviously this has glide lock. You know, in today's in 2021, not just because it's kind of the watch that everybody knows, but in 2021, I'm going to say that the Submariner definitely has the #1 spot when I'm talking about dive watches. Now, keep in mind, just because I say that Submariner's #1 doesn't mean that there's not a lot of other awesome dive watches that are almost on the same level as the Submariner, and some that surpass the Submariner in different areas. So let's look at our second watch. So we're looking at, the Rolex Submariner. That's what we just looked at, 114060. Now we're going to look at Rolex's sister brand, which is Tudor. Hans Willdorf created Rolex, and then he created the sister brand Tudor. And his objective, and I don't want to misquote, but it was basically that he wanted to make a cheap Rolex, a more price accessible Rolex, and that's why he created Tudor. What we're seeing today, 2021, and this has been the case for the past few years, we're seeing for whatever reason, the shortage of the Rolex sports watches. That includes the Submariner. We're seeing, gray market, secondary market, not through your authorized dealer, because authorized dealers often don't have any Rolex sports watches in stock. So we're seeing the gray market sellers that are selling the Rolex sports watches, and those prices are going through the roof. Sometimes sometimes where the price is more than double what it would be if someone could find it within the authorized dealer. So, with that being the case, Tudor today in 2019, 2020, and 2021 is taking a completely different direction. I think that Tudor is positioned to become the next Rolex, meaning that I think Rolex is working to position themselves out of reach of most consumers. Therefore, they're really bringing new life to their Tudor sister brand, and that's evident when you look and when you hold a Tudor in your hands. This Tudor Black Bay 58, in my opinion, is, in a lot of ways, I like it better than the Submariner. But there's some things that when you look at it, if you really zoom in on the dial, it's an awesome dial. But if you look at the finishing of the markers and the hands, you're probably going to notice that they're not as refined as the Rolex Submariner. There's not as much extreme attention to detail with the dial. This has this is, let's see, it's the steel inox, so it's it's a really solid bracelet. This bracelet has on the side, though, whereas the Submariner is smooth, this Black Bay 58 on the side of the bracelet has rivets, and they're fake rivets, and that was to give it a more vintage look. But a lot of collectors will say, oh, well, Tudor just put those on there because they wanted to differentiate the Tudor bracelet from the Rolex bracelet, which, kind of, I don't want to say cheapen up the look of it, but set it aside in a way to where, a salesperson can say, well, you want the Submariner because it doesn't have that. But a lot of people like these faux rivets, these fake rivets. The clasp is very nice. It does not have the glide lock system, but I hardly ever use the glide lock system on my Submariner. That's handy if you get fat, you get skinny, and you want to adjust your wristwatch bracelet without the use of tools. That's nice to have that, but it's not a must. And if I start to gain that much weight, I got more problems than the watch on my wrist. I got to hit the gym, because something I do with working out, if I start to notice I'm getting fat, I stick 2 fingers on each side of my pants. And if I can't put 2 fingers on each side, then I'm starting to get too fat. So I start dieting. And then I get to where I can comfortably put 2 fingers on each side and I'm good. So if my waistline starts to get big and my wrist starts to get big, then hey, I gotta work out and solve that problem. So for me, glide lock is not something that's a really significant loss. The bezel on this Black Bay 58 is aluminum. So it is going to show patina, which is a desirable thing. It's going to fade. Wear it in the oceans of the world, the hot tubs of the world, saunas, swimming pools, showers. This is going to fade, which is fine. And when we look at another piece here in a minute, I'm going to show you what a patinaed bezel looks like in another. This particular piece, I think, is about a little bit over a year old. The Tudor Black Bay 58, so it hasn't had time to really. I haven't banged it into a lot of walls yet. Haven't taken it in a lot of pools and oceans yet because of all this stuff that's been going around and made travel difficult. But Yeah, it's got a 60. You hear that? As a 60 click bezel. So to go from the 12 o'clock position to the 12 o'clock position, it's 60 clicks. Again, the Submariner has a 120 click bezel. So the bezel action on this, although very reassuring and very professional sounding, it's not the ultra slick 120 click bezel that the Submariner has. So this is 60, that's 120. So, you know, something worth mentioning there. The crown on this is very nice. This particular piece does not have crown guards. Check out my other video where I talk about why you might want crown guards or why you might not want crown guards. I go into a bunch of detail within that. But at a high level, this gives, the no crown guards gives this piece a more vintage appearance. One of the coolest things about the Black Bay 58 is that you're getting current, because this is the sister brand of Rolex, you're getting current Rolex technology, you know, nicer bracelet, better case finishing, better overall design than you would in a vintage piece, you know, an old piece, but you're getting the appearance of a dive watch that is from the past. So it's a very cool piece, very cool option. You know, if you're looking for a dive watch, definitely give the Black Bay line a look. And one thing I would encourage you to do, not just the Black Bay line, but the Black Bay 58 line in particular. You know, 39 millimeters. This is 1 millimeter smaller than the Rolex Submariner that I've got, but I think it's still a perfect size. I'm not a fan of the Black Bays that are larger, the original Black Bays, but the Black Bay 58 series and 39 millimeters, I really like it a lot. Again, personal preference, but if you go to the authorized dealer and you look at Black Bays and Black Bay 58s, hold it to the side, look at the side of the case opposite the crown, and you'll see how tall the original Black Bay is versus this Black Bay 58. And for a quick size comparison, you know, you can hold it up to your Submariner, and I mean the 58 and the Submariner, I mean case profile's about, well, I would say the Submariner's a little less tall than the Black Bay 58, but they're both really, really good in my opinion. So yeah, Tudor Black Bay 58, definitely worth a look at. And, oh, I didn't mention, the water resistance on the Tudor Black Bay 58 is, and it does have a screw-down crown, 200 meters, 660 feet, whereas the Rolex Submariner is 300 meters, 1,000 feet. If you're down that deep, you got more to worry about than your wristwatch. So the next piece I want to talk about, and this is another, like the Submariner, this is another wristwatch that the fictitious character James Bond made famous. This is the Omega Seamaster 300M. Now this particular one is pre-coaxial. It's 300 meters, 1,000 feet water resistant. It's got the helium release valve. It's got a wave pattern on the dial. Now this particular bezel is aluminum, and as you can see here, it's got a very patinaed, very faded look. So if you want something that develops patina, you know, this is an example of an aluminum bezel piece and the type of patina that it may develop over time. And you can see I've got a scratch in the bezel. I ran into a wall somewhere and got that scratch in there. So, you know, it's gonna show age, and for a lot of people, that's a desirable characteristic. The case of the Omega Seamaster 300M, just like the Rolex, just like the Tudor, it's rock solid. The bracelet, rock solid. Now, it doesn't have micro adjustments like the Submariner, and the case, and the bracelet rather, on the Omega Seamaster 300M, it doesn't taper like the Tudor. It doesn't taper like the Rolex Submariner. It's still comfortable, but, you know, it doesn't taper at all. So, you know, I would say with the Rolex and the Tudor, I know I like the bracelets on those a lot better. But this is a great option. Again, classic piece, made famous by the fictitious character James Bond. So, you know, nothing wrong with that. Now we're going to go to a little less heard of pieces. We're going to look at one of these that I really like, and this is the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 2. This comes in a variety of different sizes. They've got a 42, which this is 42. Then they've got a 44 and I think a 46. Comment below and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know they've got the 42 and the 44 and then a larger one. I think the larger one's 46. Again, I think 42 is great because, as I mentioned earlier, I think 39 millimeters to 42 millimeters is the perfect size range. And this has a ceramic bezel. The bezel action, let's see how many clicks bezel this has. Let's see. It's actually got a 120 click bezel. So to get from 12 o'clock to 12 o'clock, it's 120 clicks. The bezel feel of this and the bezel sound, completely different than the Tudor or the Submariner. Oh, and let me jump back before we do that. Let's jump back to the Omega Seamaster. So it has the Omega Seamaster has. It also has a 120 click bezel. So out of these 4 pieces that we looked at so far, the only one with a 60 click bezel has been the Tudor Black Bay 58. So the bezel action on this Breitling, although nice, it's a lot firmer. It doesn't have that buttery smooth feel. Will it loosen up over time? Possibly, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it feels good. It does not by any means feel cheap. The case on this Super Ocean Heritage 2 is very nice. The crown, no crown guards, big crown. It's got a date, and what's cool, even though this has a date, it's there's no Cyclops, none of that stuff sticking up on top of the sapphire crystal, which when you're dealing with Submariner date, that's a less than desirable trait for a lot of collectors, including myself, because it gives, you know, the date Cyclops just makes the sapphire not flat, and it just looks stupid, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Like I said, I can say what I want to say. Also worth mentioning, I didn't mention it with the Omega Seamaster 300M, it has a date at the 3 o'clock position and no Cyclops, so it looks really clean. The date on this Super Ocean Heritage 2 is at the 6 o'clock position, no Cyclops. It looks clean. This comes in a variety of different dial colors. I like the blue and I like the black, and they also had a black with rose gold, which looked really nice. But yeah, this is a great piece. 200 meters, 660 feet, so the water resistance on this is the same as the Tudor Black Bay 58. And of course, the Rolex Submariner and the Omega Seamaster were both the same. They had 1,000 feet, 300 meters water resistance. So if you get the Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 2, definitely get this shark mesh bracelet. You could always add a rubber strap. You could add you know, a leather strap, whatever you wanted to, aftermarket, but definitely get it with the shark mesh bracelet. It's really comfortable. It's unique. It's got a taper to it. The one thing about the Breitling that I don't like as well as I like the other pieces we previously mentioned, the clasp is nice, but it feels just a little thin, and I don't know how it's going to hold up over time. To be determined. Very well made, but Rolex and Tudor definitely has the clasp. You know, they're the leaders in that area, no doubt. But this is a great piece. If you're wanting something that's not a Rolex, something that's not an Omega, and something that's, you know, wear anywhere, swim with it, shower with it, whatever. You know, make sure your crown's screwed down. But it's a great option for that. The next piece we're going to go to, this is even less heard of. I would say this is the least heard of all these pieces so far. This is a Ulysses Nardin Maxi Marine Diver. Now, this one has, let's see, water resistance on it is, let's see, 300 meters, 1,000 feet. It's got, let's see, the bezel clicks. Let's see what it's got here. It's got a 60 click bezel. So just like the Tudor Black Bay 58, this is a 60 click bezel. What makes this one different, this Ulysses Nardin Maxi Marine Diver, is that it does not have an aluminum bezel insert. It does not have a ceramic bezel insert. This bezel, if you've ever looked at, say, the you know, the Rolex Yachtmaster, it's a bezel that looks similar to that. So it's really unique. It's got wave type pattern in the bezel itself. So definitely a unique look. This piece has a date at the 6 o'clock position without a Cyclops, which is great. It has small seconds, which is kind of cool. But again, if you're wanting that hand that sweeps, you know, if it's one of your first watches and you want that big hand that sweeps, you're not going to get that with this. It's going to be that small seconds down around the 6 o'clock position. So that's something to consider. This also has a power reserve indicator at the 12 o'clock position, which is really cool. You can tell how much energy your, this watch, and obviously all these watches are automatic, so when you wear them, they keep themselves charged while they're on your wrist. So, that's kind of cool, having a power reserve indicator complication. The case on this is super nice. Unlike the previous references that we've looked at from the other manufacturers, the back of this Ulysses Nardin, it uses screws to attach. Not that that's a problem, but, the Rolex, the Tudor, the Breitling, they had I guess you call it the oyster style case on the Rolex and the Tudor, and then whatever Breitling's equivalent of that is. But this actually has screws in there. So this screws the back of the case on. Not that that's a problem, but something to be aware of. Over time, if you swim with this a lot and those screws get gunked up, how hard might it be for a watchmaker to go in and, and take that case back off? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I may be overthinking this. But as far as premium fit and finish is concerned, this piece right here is the most high-end looking piece out of all the dive watches that we've just referenced. And this particular dial is burgundy, and it's got a quilted pattern to it. So in the sunlight, it looks like a quilt. It's crazy. I mean, this is a very high-end finishing on this piece. Also, the lume on this, the glow-in-the-dark stuff, it's brighter than the lume on any of my other pieces. So that's, Ulysses Nardin's done it right with this. Now, this is a great piece. Now, it is a little bit larger. I think it's 42.7, so right under 43 millimeters. But it's a wearable size. Doesn't feel too big. I really enjoy it. So again, Ulysses Nardin Maxi Marine Diver, another dive watch that you may want to take a look at that's less common. You may not have even heard of Ulysses Nardin until now. And I'm going to save this one for last. This is the Panerai Luminor. Now this is different because it's a manual wind piece, meaning that you pop this out and then you turn this little wheel here and it winds the watch. Unlike these other pieces we just looked at, this has an exhibition case back, so you can see the movement in the back. Manual wind is super cool. It's just something different. Now, this does not have a seconds hand, so other than setting the time and seeing that it's set, there's no indication, unless you flip the watch around and look at the movement in action, that it's actually wound and keeping time. So, with that being said, with Panerai, this is the PAM 112. With Panerai, I wanted a just a core reference. I didn't care for they make so many different references. I just wanted the basic manual wind. But what I did want, I wanted the sapphire sandwich dial. When you hold this sideways, you look at the dial, you can see how the lume is depressed. There's the dial and it's cut out, and you can see the lume underneath. That's super cool. The exhibition case back where you can see the movement, that's super cool. And what really makes this piece cool, and I've got it on a leather strap now, but if I put it on a rubber strap, you can swim with this thing. This particular piece, 300 meters, 1,000 feet, water resistant. So highly water resistant. It is worth mentioning, the bezel on this Panerai Luminor 112 is smooth. There's no aluminum insert. There's no ceramic insert. This bezel will show scratches. So if scratches offend you, you shouldn't look at this Panerai Luminor. The straps, what's really nice about this, I can change the straps with screws. I got a little screwdriver. I can put on a leather strap. I can put on a rubber strap. You can get stainless bracelets for the Panerai, and I always recommend getting a stainless bracelet when you get a dive watch. But for Panerai, I don't. There's something about Panerai that I think the rubber strap is best, and then if you're not swimming with it, put on whatever leather strap for the day. I mean, it's so easy to swap these straps out. So this is a great piece and it's larger. It's 44 millimeters, but it's just got a unique identity. This doesn't look like a Rolex. This doesn't look like an Omega. This has its own unique identity. So if you want something that's big, something that's manual wind, you can get these in automatics. They've got different references that are automatic, but just something that's It's really cool. It's got some history associated with it. The Italian frogmen, you know, they wore the Panerai Luminor. So it's got a, you know, it's got a backstory, and it's you know, completely different from all of the other pieces that we just looked at. So again, you know, just to recap, I think your best bet, if you can find one, I think your best bet is to go with you know, to go with Submariner. I don't think there's anything wrong with Submariner, except for the fact that there is a Submariner stigma, and it's not as bad as it used to be. But the stigma used to be is that if you had a Submariner, you just wanted to be cool, and you thought that was the, you know, the watch, because that's the watch that everybody thinks of when they think of, you know, what's the best wristwatch in the world. Often, a lot of people that aren't even interested in watches, they'll say, "Oh, it's a Submariner." You know, so that's kind of the thing with the Submariner that you've got to deal with. But you're not buying a watch to appeal to other people. You're buying what you want, what you enjoy wearing. And for that reason, I would say out of all of these, despite the perceived stigma associated with Submariner, I would say the Submariner is the best out of all of these. So if I had to, let's see, if I was going to do one and done, you know, just one watch and be done, I would definitely go with the Submariner, just because it's just the perfect size. It's well made. You know, it's something I don't think is ever going to go, you know, I don't think it's ever going to go out of style. And I would say the same is probably true for the, probably for everything that I just showcased here. Probably everything is a timeless design. The only one that I would say might, at least temporarily, fall out of, I mean, if you're doing this for style, I mean, you know, that whatever type collector you are, I like usability. You know, I like something I can swim with, shower with. You know, that's what I like. Something that fits well, not too big, not too small. But I would say out of all of these, the only one that over time may not retain that timeless appeal could be the Panerai. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, because I think the Panerai, you know, we see trends with all sorts of stuff, not just watches, but where big is the big thing, and then small is the big thing. You know, trends change. I mean, look at blue jeans. I used to wear baggy blue jeans 20 years ago. You know, now there's slimmer blue jeans. If you wore baggy blue jeans today, you'd kind of look goofy. I mean, you can still do it. Same with watches. You know, 10, 15 years ago, the big watch was the big thing. I mean, even watches that were larger than 44 millimeters. You know, that's what was popular. But, you know, we're always, it seems at 40 millimeter, right around 39 to 42 millimeters, it seems that size range is probably always going to be desirable, comfortable, and acceptable in the eyes of a lot of people. You know, so for that reason, out of all these I just showcased, I think, you know, the only one that potentially may not remain iconic could be the Panerai. But, again, this is a core reference Panerai. Core reference meaning, you know, there's so many different references out there to choose from, but this one is simple. You know, it's got manual wind. It does have the sandwich dial, and it does have the exhibition case back. You know, what more would you want from a Panerai? And that also is 300 meters, 1,000 feet water resistance. Some of the newer reference Panerais, ooh, I wouldn't touch them. I mean, some of those are barely even water resistance, pathetic. But this is a real Panerai, you know, back when Panerai was making the good stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hope this video helps. Again, you know, I'm here trying to help people that are searching for wristwatches. You know, in dive watches, they're a popular watch. Part of the reason, even if you don't dive, which some people will dive with their watches, but even if you don't dive, you can have something that's highly water resistant, you know, highly very durable. You know, something wear pretty much anywhere. I mean, don't go out and work on a car wearing it, or tune up your lawnmower. I wouldn't do stuff like that wearing a dive watch. But for most situations, you know, going to the beach, going to the pool, going to a meeting, you know, whatever you're doing, I think that a dive watch is probably the best thing, because you don't have to worry about the water resistance properties. I mean, you can wear it and enjoy it. And and that's something with the with watches that are dress watches, and we'll talk about those with another video. So subscribe, ring that bell icon to be notified whenever I post another video. But there's some cool aspects of having dress watches, but if you're just doing a one and done, and if that's the case, I would definitely steer you towards a dive watch, just because it's something you can wear anywhere. And all of these pieces, the ones that we just talked about, I think any of these pieces would be perfectly acceptable to wear in the pool or into a meeting or to a formal occasion. I don't think there's any of these that would be inappropriate to wear in those situations. Now, some people may feel differently, which is fine. You may say, well, you got to wear a dress watch on a leather strap, which is fine. I mean, if that's your opinion, that's cool. And typically, I would wear something like that as well. But since I like dive watches, I'm just going to wear a dive watch. That's just how I roll. So, hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, I want to give a shout out to Archie Luxury, Archibald Chesterfield the third, AC3. And I found him when I was, when I was just getting interested in wristwatches, and he's a Bible of knowledge, man. I mean, he knows references. He can rattle off references from his head. I mean, that's how well he knows wristwatches. So I learned a lot from him. I'll flash up a YouTube card. Be sure to check out his channel as well. But comment below, tell me what you think, and ask questions, because I'm always looking for topics to attempt to address within upcoming Timepieces for Tomorrow videos. Hope you enjoyed this delivery. Again, I'm not trying to sugarcoat this, doctor it up, make it look like a Hollywood production or anything like that. I just want you to enjoy the videos and hopefully take away some, maybe a feeling of having been entertained, or maybe it was educational, maybe a combination of both. That's what I'm going after. So thanks for your viewership. Be sure to subscribe. It's youtube.com/IRIXGuy. And again, ring that bell icon when you do to be notified whenever I post another video. Y'all have a good day. Hey y'all, Captain IRIXGuy here. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to subscribe. It's youtube.com/IRIXGuy. And ring that bell icon when you do to be notified whenever I post another video. Thanks for your viewership, and y'all have a good day.